Last evening, at the very normal time of 2 in the morning, President Trump informed the nation that we were at war with Iran. And now, with some further thoughts, President Trump.
Hello. Hi. Good evening and happy World War III to all who celebrate. It's me, Donald Trump, FIFA Peace Prize winner and Nobel Peace Prize taker. Yoink! Remember when I did that? I launched this attack after me and my Board of Peace decided that we were bored of peace. Little wordplay there. Did you catch it? As we all know, Iran has been 2 weeks away from developing a nuclear weapon for like the last 15 years or something. So we had to act now, and we're doing war. War! What is it good for? Distracting from the Epstein files. And I know on the campaign trail, I promise.
That is the sound of Tomahawk missiles being launched from destroyers somewhere in or near the Persian Gulf. And of course, a cold open from Saturday Night Live. As I'm recording this, American service members have died in the Middle East. Now I want you to sit with that for a second. Not the politics of it, not the opinion of it, the fact of it. 6 Americans, at least 6 by the time I'm recording this, are dead. Their families are being notified. Their bedrooms are still the way they left them. Their last texts are still sitting on someone's phone, undeleted, because deleting them would make it real. And right now, most screens in America are showing you the same thing. Explosions, maps with arrows, talking heads with flag pins explaining why this is either the most courageous thing a president has ever done or the most reckless. Your phone is buzzing. The X feed is on fire. The oil price ticker is climbing like it's trying to escape the screen, and you specifically you, the person listening right now, you can't look away. That's the point. Not that Iran doesn't matter, it totally does. Not that the people dying don't matter, they matter more than anything I'll say today. But I need you to hear something that nobody on any channel, on any network, on any late night show, and honestly most podcasts is going to tell you. While you're staring at the brightest light in the room, something is happening in the dark. Several somethings, actually. And by the time you notice them, it'll be too late to do anything about it. Welcome back to TrapThink. I'm Darren. I'm glad you're here. So look, you know what's happening. I know it's happening. Everybody with a phone and a pulse knows. Iran, bombs, missiles, oil prices. 6 dead Americans so far. It's on every channel, every feed, every group chat. Your uncle texted you about it. Your coworker won't shut up about it. You can't open your eyes without seeing a map of the Middle East with arrows drawn all over it. And every other podcast you listen to this week is going to give you their take on Iran. The left-wing shows will tell you it's illegal and reckless. The right-wing shows will tell you it's bold and necessary. And both of them are going to fill 2 hours making you feel like you picked the right team. Well, that's their business model. Your tribal loyalty is their revenue stream. I'm not doing that. Not because Iran doesn't matter, it does, and we're going to talk about it. But I want to do something nobody else is doing right now. I want to ask a question the machine doesn't want you asking. What are you not seeing? Right now, this week, while every available pixel of your attention is locked onto the Middle East, what moved? What slid across the table while the room was watching the explosions? Because something did, several things. And that's what this episode's about. We're going to talk about Iran. We have to. It's unavoidable. But we're also going to talk about its mechanism as a tool. Specifically, we're going to look at what happened this week that you're not seeing because Iran has consumed every available pixel of your attention. There's a story in Nehemiah chapter 4 I think has some serious relevance here. Nehemiah is rebuilding the wall around Jerusalem. Of course, this is Old Testament. The city's been destroyed. The people are vulnerable. They've got enemies on every side. So Nehemiah does something brilliant. He tells the builders, work with a tool in one hand and a sword in the other. Build and defend at the same time. Because the enemy isn't going to attack where you're strong. The enemy is going to find the gap, the section that nobody's watching. And the enemies, they didn't charge the front gate. They spread rumors, created distractions, sent messages designed to pull Nehemiah off the wall and into a meeting, to waste his time, break his focus, get his eyes off the work. And Nehemiah's response is one of the hardest lines in the Old Testament. He sends a message back that says, I am doing great work and cannot come down. Why should the work stop while I leave it and come down to you? I cannot come down. That's the energy for today. Because right now, in March of 2026, the entire country has been pulled off the wall. Every eye, every screen, every conversation pulled towards the loudest explosion. And while we are all staring east, the gaps in the wall are wide open. Things are walking through. And here's the thing Nehemiah understood that we all keep forgetting. The enemies at the gate weren't the real problem. The real problem was the trick, the distraction, the invitation to come down. The enemies knew that if they could get the builder to stop building, the wall would never go up. That's the same playbook operating right now. The media, the algorithms, the partisan outrage machine, they're not informing you. They're inviting you to come down off the wall. And every minute you spend rage scrolling is a minute you're not watching the gaps. Let me set the table on Iran real quick because I'm not going to ignore it. I'm just not going to let it eat the whole meal. On February 28th, the United States and Israel launched coordinated strikes on Iran, Operation Epic Fury. Within hours, Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was confirmed dead. Dozens of senior military and political leaders gone. Trump said 48 leaders were taken out in about an hour. The Iranian Navy, the Air Force, radar, gone. In his words, just about everything's been knocked out.
Today we grieve for the 4 heroic American service members who have been killed in action and send our love and support to their families. In their memory, we continue this mission with ferocious, unyielding resolve to crush the threat this terrorist regime poses to the American people, and a threat indeed it is. We have the strongest and most powerful by far military in the world, and we will easily prevail. We're already substantially ahead of our time projections, but whatever the time is, it's okay. Whatever it takes, we will always, and we have right from the beginning, we projected 4 to 5 weeks, but we have capability to go far longer than that. We'll do it. Whatever somebody said today, they said, oh, well, the president wants to do it really quickly. After that, he'll get bored. I don't get bored. There's nothing boring about this. Do you agree with that, Pete? I don't think there's anything, Mr. General. I think there's nothing boring about it. Somebody actually said from the media, I think he'll get bored after about a week or two. No, we don't get bored. I never get bored. If I got bored, I wouldn't be standing here right now, I guarantee you that, to go through what I had to go through. We also projected 4 weeks to terminate the military leadership, and as you know, that was done in about an hour, so we're ahead of schedule there by a lot.
Well, Iran hit back hard. Apparently not everything was knocked out because retaliatory strikes came across the Gulf, Kuwait, Bahrain, UAE, Saudi Arabia, drones hitting the Dubai airport, missiles aimed at the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain, embassies struck and closed, Americans being told, leave now. The Strait of Hormuz is closed, oil is spiking, the Dow dropped over 1,200 points, and 6 American service members are confirmed dead. 5 more are seriously wounded, and the president said on record, we expect casualties, but in the end, it's going to be a great deal for the world. A great deal for the world. I want to pause here, because that sentence should stop you cold. The President of the United States just described American military casualties as part of a great deal. Business language, transaction language, cost of doing business language. 6 families just received the worst phone call of their lives, and the framing is, well, it's good return on investment. And by the way, this isn't a new thing. Politicians have been sanitizing military death with euphemisms since the first war. Collateral damage, kinetic action, acceptable losses. Both parties do this. They turn people into line items because it's easier to sell on a spreadsheet than a body bag. Then he told the Daily Mail, which is a British tabloid, that the whole thing would take about 4 weeks. At the Pentagon, Secretary Hegseth said he'd, quote-unquote, never hang a time frame on the war. In another interview, Trump wouldn't rule out ground troops. Rubio said the hardest hits are yet to come. And then Trump told a reporter completely unprompted, as he just heard, I don't get bored, as if the nation's chief concern about a military campaign was the presidential attention span. That's not reassuring, man. That's a Yelp review. But here's what I want you to notice. Not the content of those statements, the volume. In 72 hours, the president gave interviews to CNBC, Fox News, CNN, NBC, the New York Post, the Daily Mail, and ABC. He posted video statements on social media. He spoke at a Medal of Honor ceremony. He called into shows. The Washington Times called it a grand media tour. When was the last time a president launched a major military operation and then immediately did a press blitz selling it like a product launch? I mean, Bush addressed the nation from the Oval Office when Iraq started. Obama gave a primetime address on Libya. Even Trump's first-term strike on Soleimani was announced through the official White House channels. This time, this is a media saturation campaign. The conflict is being marketed, and I don't want to call it a war because that takes an act of Congress, and to the best of my knowledge, there's been no act as of yet. But the marketing of the not war is so overwhelming it leaves no oxygen for anything else, and that's where the media earns its paycheck. Not as watchdogs, as amplifiers. Every network, left, right, and center, is running Iran 24/7 because Iran gets clicks. Iran gets views. Iran keeps you glued. The algorithm doesn't have a political agenda. It has a revenue model. And war is the best content money can buy because it generates itself. Every Nat Pop explosion or rocket launch is a new thumbnail. Every casualty is a new chyron. Every hot take is a new share. The media isn't covering the war for you. The media is monetizing the war off you. So to follow that metaphor, what walked in while you were watching the East Wall? Well, item 1. I want to talk about something that happened February 27th, one day before the Iran strikes. One day. And I guarantee you, 90% of you listening had no idea it happened. The President of the United States banned an American technology company and had the Pentagon label it a national security threat. Not a Chinese company, not Russian, American. Anthropic, the company that makes Claude, one of the most advanced AI systems in the world. Why? Was Anthropic selling secrets to China? Nope. Security breach? No. Defective technology? Not even close. Anthropic got banned because they told the Pentagon, you can use our AI for anything you want except for 2 things. 1, you cannot use it for mass domestic surveillance of American citizens, and 2, you cannot use it for fully autonomous weapons, meaning weapons that kill people without a human making the decision to pull the trigger. That's it. That was the line. An American company said, we'll help you fight wars, gather intelligence, do anything legal, but we won't help you spy on your own citizens without oversight, and we won't build a robot that decides on its own who lives and who dies. And for that, the president called them radical left nutjobs, ordered every federal agency to stop using their technology, and had the Secretary of War, yeah, they officially rebranded, we'll get back to that, label them a supply chain risk to national security. A designation that has never before been applied to an American company. That's for adversaries, for enemies of the state. And here's the kicker. Most federal agencies don't use Anthropic's products. They use Microsoft's Copilot. Why? Well, because of licensing. So the executive action was less about operational impact and more about sending a message. The message wasn't, we need AI without guardrails. The message was, you do not say no to us in public.
Brendan Bordelon joins us now. He's an AI and tech influence reporter for Politico. Thanks so much for being with us. So this has been a really fascinating dynamic to watch, to say the least. Taking a step back, though, what concerns did Anthropic initially raise about how the Pentagon would use its AI model?
Sure. So this all has its start in the January raid by the U.S. military to capture former Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. During that raid, Anthropic's AI model Claude was actually used by the U.S. military. No one's exactly sure why or how, but that got back to the company who asked its corporate partner Palantir about the use of that model. That ask, in turn, got back to the Pentagon and rankled some folks at the Department of Defense. That culminated in a Tuesday meeting between Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. That's where Hegseth gave Amodei an ultimatum: allow our warfighters to use your model for all lawful uses, or we will blacklist you and potentially force you to use to allow us to use your model as we see fit. Obviously, negotiations broke down on Thursday, and the Anthropic CEO said that they would reject those demands. Their 2 red lines are no use of their model to empower autonomous weapons and no use of their model to surveil American citizens. Obviously, things have broken down here. It's an incredibly fast-moving and fluid situation, but it does look like Anthropic is in serious hot water with the U.S. government.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. Darren, is this a left-wing thing? Is Anthropic some woke company that got what was coming to it? As far as I can tell, no. But let me save you the tribal sorting. Within hours of the ban, OpenAI, Anthropic's biggest competitor, announced they'd secured the Pentagon contract. And Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, said his company maintained the same safety principles. No mass surveillance, no autonomous weapons. Same terms. Different outcome. The difference? Anthropic said it out loud. Anthropic's CEO went on the record and said, "We will not remove these guardrails under threat." And the government made an example of them, not because of the policy, but because of the defiance. What is interesting right now in this moment is OpenAI is basically saying the same thing, only after a little public scrutiny.
Now, after the fallout between Anthropic and the Pentagon, Sam Altman with OpenAI said that he wants to make some changes to the deal he struck with the U.S. government. In fact, last night, Altman posted to social media, writing in part, quote, "We shouldn't have rushed to get this out on Friday. The issues are super complex and demand clear communication. We were generally trying to de-escalate things and avoid a much worse outcome. But I think it looked opportunistic and sloppy." So, Katrina, we now know OpenAI faced a lot of backlash for working with the government. Is that why Altman is changing his tune, do you think?
Well, according to the Wall Street Journal, which has a fantastic report out today, he's saying in an all-hands meeting at a town hall that it's been really painful. So in the way he's couching it to his own people, according to this report, it does suggest that they were seen to be opportunistic, as he said himself, Friday night swooping in on that deal, saying they'd made a deal that would be comfortable for Anthropic as well. There's been no public sense that it is comfortable for Anthropic. The red lines do still seem to apply. And then, of course, OpenAI saying, responding to that and saying they are going to add extra safeguards on top of the ones they already said were enough. They were saying that they would just do this work on the classified cloud, not the edge. They're now saying they will not be striking any deals with the National Security Agency or any intelligence agencies that fall under the Department of War or the Pentagon. That would mean also the Defense Intelligence Agency. These, of course, are the intelligence side of things. So what they're trying to guard against there is any risk of mass domestic surveillance, which the Pentagon already says it is not permitted to do under US law. So this is a very kind of frenetic stage where we're seeing a lot of back and forward on the language. And it's not clear if OpenAI has done enough to satisfy its own internal critics, never mind the external critics.
So now that OpenAI is changing their tune, I wonder if this makes them a national security threat too. I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. Dean Ball, who is Trump's own senior policy advisor for AI, posted on X, "This is simply attempted corporate murder." Trump's own AI guy said he couldn't recommend investigating an American AI anymore. When the president's own former advisor is calling it insane, maybe it is insane. Has anyone checked on James Cameron? This is literally the plot of Terminator. Like, literally. The Department of War wants a company to build the T-1000, or at least the brains of it. And the company that said no got blacklisted. Somewhere, Sarah Connor is saying, "I told you so," into a mirror while she's loading a shotgun. And the timing. Oh, man, the timing. The Anthropic ban, February 27th. The Clinton-Epstein depositions, February 26th and 27th. The Iran strikes, February 28th. In a 72-hour window, we got an AI governance crisis, an Epstein testimony, and a not war. 3 stories, any one of which would dominate a normal news cycle for weeks. Instead, they stacked like a pileup on the highway, and only the biggest wreck got the cameras. Those questions, should the Pentagon have unlimited access to AI weapons? What does it mean when the government destroys a company for maintaining ethical boundaries? Those died in the news cycle like a candle in a hurricane, not because someone suppressed them, but because the media machine has one setting: loudest story wins, and bombs are always louder than policy, always. Now, I should note that Sam Altman said that the contract was rushed, sloppy, and it led to OpenAI and ChatGPT as looking opportunistic? You don't say. Okay, let's take a breath, because if I don't inject some humor here, we're both going to need to go to therapy after this. Can we just sit with the absurdity of this week? Let's start with the names. Operation Epic Fury. That's the actual military designation for a bombing campaign that has killed hundreds of people. Epic Fury. Somebody in the Pentagon sat in a room, probably with a whiteboard and a Red Bull, and pitched that. And other adult humans with families and security clearances and mortgage payments said, "Yes, I like it. Put it on a mug. Put the controller down, bro. People are dying." But the U.S. doesn't have a monopoly on this. Israel's operation is called Roaring Lion. Last June, they called theirs Rising Lion. They made a sequel. The lion rose, now it roars. What's next? Operation Righteous Lion? At what point does the lion get a streaming deal on Netflix? And Iran, not to be outdone, is calling their retaliation True Promise and the Roman numeral 4. 4. It's a franchise. They're on the 4th installment. Somewhere in Tehran, there's another guy with a whiteboard that says True Promise 5, The Reckoning, with the release date circled in red marker. At this point, just set a release date and start selling tickets. The post-credits scene will tease True Promise 5. The expanded cinematic universe includes a Hezbollah spin-off. This is serious, but I actually do wonder when the military operation titles will start getting a subtitle. 3 countries, 3 branding teams, 1 conflict nobody's legally calling a war. If you squint, it looks less like a military operation and more like competing franchises fighting for opening weekend box office numbers. Then there's Trump doing a media tour from Mar-a-Lago like he's promoting a new season of The Apprentice. He told the Daily Mail the whole thing would take about 4 weeks, like he's scheduling a kitchen renovation. Yeah, the contractor says 4 weeks, but you know how these things go. Tiles back ordered. Iran's navy is destroyed, but we're waiting on the countertops. Meanwhile, Congress is voting on war powers resolutions to authorize a war that's already happening. The bombs are falling already. People are dead, and Congress is debating whether to authorize the thing that's currently exploding. It's like arguing about whether to lock the front door while the burglar is in the kitchen making a sandwich. Tim Kaine says the Constitution requires a vote before war. He's right. He's also saying it after the not war started, which is a bit like a referee throwing a flag on a play that happened 3 possessions ago. But let's be fair. Democrats pulled the same move under Obama with Libya. The playbook doesn't change. The minority party objects. The majority holds. Nothing changes. The bombs keep falling. It's bipartisan theater. The only consistent thing about the war powers debate is that neither party actually wants to use it when they're in charge. Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna, Republican and Democrat, are co-sponsoring the same war powers resolution. Again, the same guys who tried to sit together as a symbol at the State of the Union. Same guys who pushed for the Epstein files, and the system is treating it like a glitch in the Matrix. Error, bipartisan cooperation detected, rebooting tribal protocols. The algorithm literally does not know what to do when a Republican and a Democrat agree. There's no outrage template for that. It doesn't generate clicks. So the media mostly ignores it because agreement doesn't pay. Lindsey Graham. I'm going to do my best Lindsey Graham here. Well done, Mr. President. Evil's worst nightmare. This man has never met a war he didn't want to Instagram with. He'd endorse a bombing campaign on the dark side of the moon if someone told him it was a national security priority. And then Fetterman, a progressive Democrat, voted against the war powers resolution with the Hawks. The partisan lines aren't just blurred, they're abstract art. Picasso couldn't make sense of this caucus alignment. And Rubio held a press conference where someone shouted, "Does Congress have to weigh in?" And Rubio's energy was pure, "We're doing this thing whether you like it or not." Someone asked about an imminent threat, and he just kept talking about something else. The political equivalent of, "New phone, who dis?"
Does Congress have to weigh in? Does Congress have to weigh in? Is the president declaring war, and does Congress have to weigh in? And was there an imminent threat? Did you tell lawmakers that there was an imminent threat?
There absolutely was an imminent threat, and the imminent threat was that we knew that if Iran was attacked, and we believed they would be attacked, that they would immediately come after us. And we were not going to sit there and absorb a blow before we responded, because the Department of War assessed that if we did that, if we waited for them to hit us first after they were attacked, and by someone else, Israel attacked them, they hit us first, and we waited for them to hit us, we would suffer more casualties and more deaths. We went proactively in a defensive way to prevent them from inflicting higher damage. Had we not done so, there would have been hearings on Capitol Hill about how we knew that this was going to happen, and we didn't act preemptively to prevent more casualties and more loss of life.
But the crown jewel of absurdity, Tuesday, March 3rd, while Americans are dying overseas, while the Gulf is on fire, while Congress debates war powers, Texas, North Carolina, and Arkansas held primary elections, the first primaries of the 2026 midterm cycle. And about 14 of you noticed. The first major electoral event of the midterm season, and it's the political equivalent of releasing a crowd-funded documentary on the same weekend as a Marvel premiere. Nobody's watching your indie film about gerrymandering, man, not when Iron Man is shooting rockets at tanks in Iran. These are the elections that determine who runs Congress, the same Congress that's debating whether to authorize war, the same Congress that is investigating Epstein, the same Congress that is supposed to check executive power. And the primaries to fill those seats, buried. A footnote under a missile strike, and nobody in the media told you about them because primary coverage doesn't sell ads. I need to say something here because TrapThink doesn't work unless I'm honest with you, and honest means saying the thing that makes everybody uncomfortable. The real case for what happened in Iran is a strong one. This isn't me carrying water for Trump, this is me being honest. The Iranian regime killed thousands of its own people, not in some distant chapter of history, in January. Barely 2 months ago, somewhere between 12,000 and 30,000 people minimum were gunned down in the streets for protesting. AK-47s, armored trucks, bodies piled up by bulldozers. The Woman Life Freedom Movement, the crackdowns. This regime has been brutalizing its citizens for 47 years. And Trump told the Iranian people, "The hour of your freedom is at hand. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take." He told the Revolutionary Guard to lay down their weapons or face certain death. He told the people to shelter, wait it out, and build something new. You can't really disagree with this method. You can question the timing. You can wonder whether bombs create democracy. History says that's complicated at best. But the sentiment that a people who've been murdered by their own government for half a century deserve a shot at self-determination, that's not controversial, man. That's human. Iranians in Los Angeles were dancing in the streets. Exiled opposition leaders called it the moment they'd waited 47 years for. These aren't MAGA rallies. These are people whose families were destroyed by the regime saying, "Finally." And it happened to be done by the guy half of the country thinks is a dictator himself, which, if you can hold that tension without your brain breaking, is exactly the complexity the algorithm can't process. Because here's what the machine needs. Orange man bad, therefore war is bad. Or Trump is good, therefore war is good. That's the only math a feed can do. It cannot hold the idea that a deeply flawed messenger might have done something with genuine humanitarian merit, and that you can acknowledge that without becoming a cheerleader. It cannot hold the idea that the same administration doing something arguably right in Iran is simultaneously doing questionable things everywhere else. The algorithm has no box for nuance. The box doesn't generate clicks. And let me say this to the other side too. If you're sitting there nodding because you support the strikes, don't get too comfortable. Because your guy did something good in Iran doesn't mean you stop asking questions about everything else. Supporting one action doesn't require supporting the whole menu. That's the trap. That's the team jersey talking, and TrapThink is about taking the jersey off. So let me be the guy who says it. The Iranian people deserve freedom. The regime was monstrous. And whether this was the right way to get there, that conversation is worth having. But you can't have that conversation if you've already sorted yourself into a team. And that sorting, that's the trap. It's always the trap. I told you in episode 4 that the Epstein situation would keep unfolding. I told you in episode 5 that the machine would try to sort it into partisan teams. And now I'm telling you here in episode 6 that the machine has found something even better than partisanship. It found a war. Here's what's happened while you were watching the missiles. The DOJ has released over 3 million pages of Epstein files. And buried in those pages, Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, a sitting cabinet member. Lutnick told America he cut ties with Epstein in 2005. Went to Epstein's townhouse, saw the creepy massage room, walked out. Said on a podcast, "My wife and I decided I will never be in the room with that disgusting person ever again." Except the DOJ files tell a different story. In 2011, drinks with Epstein. In 2012, 4 years after Epstein pleaded guilty to soliciting a minor, Lutnick, his wife, his 4 children, and their nannies sailed to Epstein's private island, Little St. James, the island, the one with the nickname. His wife emailed Epstein's assistant, "We are heading towards you from St. Thomas. Where should we anchor exactly?" If you went to someone's house in 2005 and it was so disturbing you made a pact to never see them again, would you take your 4 children to his private island 7 years later? Would your wife be emailing his assistant about where to park the yacht? Nobody would, unless the 2005 story isn't quite what we were told. And there's a photo released by the DOJ showing Lutnick standing next to Epstein on what appears to be the island. That photo was removed from the DOJ website, then restored after reporters noticed. A photo of a sitting cabinet member next to the most notorious child sex trafficker in modern history. Posted, quietly deleted, then put back when the press caught it. The DOJ's explanation? Temporary pulled for redactions. Bullshit.
Senator Van Hollen asked about your engagements with your former neighbor, Mr. Epstein. I was encouraged to see your declaration that in 2005 you concluded he was a disgusting man with whom you should have no contact. I wish many others reached that conclusion upon meeting him. But it troubles me that you took your family to lunch on his island, that you had appointments with him. Please disclose everything. Put this to rest, because this is an issue of grave concern to my constituents. President Trump ran on releasing the Epstein files. You said casually, well, I looked at my name and how it appeared in them, as does everyone. No, everyone isn't worried about their names being in the Epstein files. I know he was your neighbor. That was a coincidence. But please disclose everything that's relevant here so that we have a chance to work together and move on.
To the best of my memory, I met him when he moved next door to me, and I met him 2 other times in 14 years, none within 6 years of that first meeting, and then a year and a half later, and none thereafter. And in the presence of my wife, and as Senator Van Hollen said, under no circumstances is there a single word that I've done anything remotely wrong in any possible regard. I did not have anything you could call a relationship, anything you could call an acquaintance. I literally met him 3 times over 14 years with widespread in between. That's all I can remember. That's all there is in the documents. I didn't look through the documents with any fear whatsoever, because I know, and my wife knows, that I have done absolutely nothing wrong in any possible regard.
But here's where TrapThink does what TrapThink does, because this isn't a Trump's cabinet problem. This is an everybody problem. Steve Bannon, the conservative firebrand, the MAGA icon, was texting Jeffrey Epstein in 2019 asking if he could hitch a ride on his plane out of Rome. And Epstein said, "My guys can pick you up. Come for dinner." That's 2019, 5 months before Epstein supposedly died in a cell. The texts are chatty, friendly. They discussed politics, made plans for meals, talked about getting rid of Jerome Powell, talked about Treasury Secretary Mnuchin. These aren't the communications of someone who barely knew Epstein. These are the communications of people who were comfortable with each other. And the Clintons. Bill Clinton flew on Epstein's plane over 24 times. The deposition from February 26th and 27th, the ones that dropped the day before Iran, those contain testimony about Clinton's presence on the island. Prince Andrew offered dinner at Buckingham Palace. What time and how many? That's what Andrew asked, like he was booking a table at the Cheesecake Factory. Bannon, Lutnick, Clinton, Gates, Andrew, this was never partisan. Epstein had connections across every aisle, every ideology, every power structure. And right now, in March 2026, while bombs are falling on Tehran, a sitting cabinet member's Epstein ties are on page 12. Because the media doesn't make money from bipartisan scandals. They make money from partisan ones. An Epstein story that implicates both sides doesn't fit anyone's narrative as cleanly as war does, so it gets buried. Not by a conspiracy, by a business model. The machine doesn't bury this story, the timeline did. And the timeline is the most effective censorship tool ever invented. Because it doesn't delete anything. It just makes sure that you're looking somewhere else when it matters. Now I'm going to get into stuff nobody's talking about. Not because it's classified, because it's boring. And boring is the best camouflage in politics. Since January 2025, the president has signed 243 executive orders. To put that in perspective, Biden signed 162 in 4 years. Obama signed 277 in 8 years. We're at 243 in 13 months. And nobody's reading them, not because they're hidden. They're in the Federal Register right there in public. But who's going to read the executive order number 14388 about the harmonized tariff schedule when there's a war going on? The government figured out a long time ago that the best place to hide something isn't in a vault. It's in a document so boring that nobody reads it. And by the way, that trick didn't start with this administration. Obama's team buried controversial regulatory changes in a Friday afternoon news dump. Bush signed signing statements that quietly altered the intent of laws Congress passed. This is standard operating procedure across administrations. The current one is just doing it at scale. On February 18th, 10 days before Iran, the president invoked the Defense Production Act, wartime authority, the power that lets the president commandeer private industry. And what was it invoked for? Glyphosate, the active ingredient in Roundup, weed killer. The president used wartime production authority to protect weed killer producers and grant them statutory immunity. Well, why do they need statutory immunity, Darren? Because they cause cancer. Glyphosate, or really Roundup, is at the center of billions in cancer lawsuits. So he's using wartime powers to protect the use of cancer-causing herbicide, even though we're not at war. Did you hear about that? Of course not. By February 28th, the sky over Tehran was on fire. February 11th, an executive order locking coal-fired power plants into long-term military contracts. While the rest of the world moves towards renewables where it's appropriate, I guess, we are signing long-term coal deals under the guise of national security. Now, I think that we should be doing both, to be honest, like renewable energy and coal or nuclear or whatever, but that's a sane strategy with nuance. So shut up, Darren. Don't you know there's Epstein things going on? February 6th, an America First arms transfer strategy restructuring how we sell weapons overseas. Press conference? There wasn't one. Because that week, Congress was fighting about DHS funding. Always something louder. And DOGE. Remember the Department of Government Efficiency? The federal workforce has been reduced by over 270,000 people. That's the population of a mid-sized city. Buffalo, New York just woke up unemployed. And the promised savings? Musk said the savings would start in around at least $2 trillion. Then he dropped it to $1 trillion, then $150 billion. The actual verifiable savings, according to independent analysis, about $32 billion. Meanwhile, government spending went up 6%. The Cato Institute, which is a libertarian think tank that should be Doge's biggest cheerleader, said it had no noticeable effect on the trajectory of spending. But it did help engineer the largest peacetime workforce reduction on record. So the government got smaller and more expensive simultaneously, which honestly, that's impressive. How the hell did they even manage that? It's like going on a diet and somehow gaining weight while also losing muscle, weaker and fatter. Congratulations. The IRS lost a massive chunk of enforcement capacity. The IRS itself predicted that the cuts would lose over $500 billion in revenue, which is a funny term, revenue. It sounds like it's money that was generated, but is it? We saved a few $1 billion in salaries and lost $500 billion in uncollected taxes. That's like firing the security guard to save his salary and getting robbed for 50 times what you saved. And multiple agencies are now quietly rehiring people they fired. The GSA cut 79% of its headquarters staff and is sending letters to the fired employees asking if they want to come back. Because when you fire everyone who manages 7,500 federal building leases, well, the leases don't manage themselves. The National Park Service rehired some of its purged employees. Parks still need running. Shocking. Doge's own wall of receipts quietly reduced its claimed savings from $460 million to $140 million. A 70% haircut on their own numbers. But corrections never trend on social media. The original brag gets shared 1 million times. The correction, that gets shared by 14 policy wonks and a think tank. That's the media economy in a nutshell. First impressions are currency. Corrections are receipts nobody keeps. Let me teach you something about magic, stage magic, the kind with cards and coins. Every magic trick has two parts. There's the trick itself, the palmed coin, the trapdoor, and there's what magicians called the force. The force is the thing that makes you look where they want you to look. It's usually the most dramatic thing on stage, a flash of fire, a loud noise. The force is so compelling your eyes move involuntarily, and while you're looking at the force, the trick happens somewhere else. Iran is the force. Not because Iran isn't real, it is, but the effect, the thing the machine produces from a war, is not information, not understanding. It's attention capture, total, complete, inescapable attention capture, and while your attention is captured, everything else moves freely. Think about your week. Since Saturday, how many hours have you spent consuming Iran content, watching clips, reading takes, arguing in group chats? Be honest, 5 hours? 10? 20? Now, how many minutes did you spend checking what legislation moved through Congress, reading executive orders, researching primary candidates, reading the Anthropic story, the Lutnick testimony? 0, or close to it. Not because you're lazy, because the magician is very good at his job. The force is overwhelming. And here's the science. When something is dramatic and threatening, your brain narrows focus. It's called attention tunneling. Fighter pilots get it, soldiers get it, news consumers get it every time a big story breaks. Your brain decides, without your permission, that the loudest signal is the only signal. Everything else goes dark. And every media outlet is complicit, not because they're scheming, but because they respond to the same incentive: clicks. What gets more clicks? An executive order about glyphosate, tariffs, or a missile hitting an embassy? The question answers itself. The algorithm rewards engagement. So the newsrooms, rationally, cover Iran 24/7, and the executive orders, the Epstein testimony, the primaries, the AI governance precedent. They get pushed to the margins. Not censored, marginalized, which is worse because censorship is obvious, marginalization is invisible. And let me be clear about something. This isn't a Republican trick or a Democrat trick. This is a media trick. The media companies, all of them, profit from your attention. Fox News, CNN, MS Now, the New York Times, the Daily Wire, they all run on the same fuel: your eyeballs, your outrage, your engagement. They disagree on everything except the business model. And the business model says, keep them watching, keep them scrolling, keep them angry. Angry people don't change the channel. The timeline is the trick. The war is the force, and your attention is what's being stolen. I'd be failing you if I didn't acknowledge how the Iran situation itself is being run through the partisan meat grinder, because even the fire on the East Wall has a trap inside it. The right is framing this as decisive leadership. Fox News is running it like a victory celebration. Lindsey Graham: well done, Mr. President. Netanyahu: this will usher in an era of peace. Trump is selling the operation like it's a product launch.
But the reality is, Iran is the head of the snake. Most of what bad happens in the region is because of Iran. You just pointed to Hezbollah. How about what happened to the south in October a couple of years ago, October the 7th? That was Iran.
All I can say is President Trump finished the job that President Reagan failed to do. I am a big admirer of Ronald Reagan, but I'm here to tell you that Donald Trump, in my opinion, is the gold standard for Republicans, maybe any president, and when it comes to foreign policy. Maduro, everybody talked about him. Well, Donald Trump's got him in jail. Cuba's next. They're going to fall. This communist dictatorship in Cuba, their days are numbered. The Iranian regime, the mothership of international terrorism, is about to collapse. The captain of the ship, the Ayatollah, is stone cold dead. All those people around him that helped him perpetuate this terrorism, they're on the run or they're dead. Finish the job. We've lost 3 Americans. God bless those Americans who sacrificed for their country. They died in a noble cause. The worst thing that can happen to a military unit is ask them to sacrifice and not finish the job. President Trump is going to finish the job that no other president was willing to do.
I can't tell if this is disgusting or not, but it's just off-putting. The left is framing it as illegal and reckless. Chuck Schumer says he is the most trigger-happy president in history. CNN runs polls showing 60% disapproval. Democrats are demanding authorization that they know will get vetoed. Same choreography as every war powers debate since Vietnam.
Make no mistake about it. This is a war of choice, not necessity. And regardless of whether you're a Democrat or a Republican or an independent, or even if you don't pay attention to politics, there's one thing almost everyone agrees on. We are sick and tired of endless wars in the Middle East. And there is real danger that this is the road we are on right now. Americans are sick of Donald Trump paying so much attention to military escapades while costs keep going up here at home. Venezuela, Somalia, Iran, and on and on. Where is Donald Trump going to strike tomorrow? He is one of the most trigger-happy presidents in all of American history. Donald Trump ran for office on the promise to wind down America's endless wars. What he's doing is exactly the opposite. He's picking military fight all over the world and not taking care of business here at home. 1 year into office, Donald Trump has broken his promise to end forever wars again and again and again, from Venezuela to threats against Greenland to now a new war with Iran. Congress must act to rein in Donald Trump's belligerence.
And joining me now is Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna of California. Congressman Khanna, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you for having me on today.
Thank you so much for being here. Let me start off with this critical question. You heard what Senator Lindsey Graham had to say. The world is, in fact, safer now that the Supreme Leader is gone. You heard Senator Kelly agree with that part of his assessment. Do you agree?
Senator Graham now has become the face of Republican foreign policy. He's been consistent, but he's been consistently wrong. Let me say this. Khomeini was a brutal dictator, but Americans are not safer today. Look, Senator Graham cheerled us into the Iraq War. He cheerled us into the effort with Libya. And Trump ran against him in 2016. He said regime change wars are absolute failures. And that has escaped Donald Trump. And now you have a situation in Iran where the IRGC is still in power. The Assembly of Experts are going to pick the new leader. By the way, they were picking the new leader before we killed Ayatollah. The Ayatollah was 86. And the question is the country going to descend in civil war? Are billions of our dollars going to be spent there? Or are American troops going to be at risk?
Both sides are performing for you. The Democrats get to say they tried. The Republicans get to say that they supported the troops. And the war continues regardless of which team wins the PR battle. It's the cocktail party again. Remember the cocktail party I talked about last week? After the cameras turn off, they all go back to the same cafeteria.
All this as a new poll shows most Americans disapprove of U.S. military action in Iran, and a majority think a long-term conflict is likely. According to the CNN poll, nearly 6 in 10 say they oppose the decision to strike Iran, and more than half believe the conflict will drag on for an extended period of time. Most also questioning the president's handling of the situation, with 60% saying he does not have a clear plan. Most also say he should seek congressional approval before any further action. Just 12% support sending U.S. ground troops into Iran.
The only people who take it seriously are you, the viewer, the voter, the person at home whose blood pressure goes up every time the split screen shows two sides fighting. Your anger's real. Their anger is a line item on a campaign budget. Meanwhile, 6 families are planning funerals. And the network's contribution to their grief is split-screen talking heads debating whether their loved one's deaths was justified or reckless. 2 options. Pick one. Download your opinion, move on to the next segment. That's what they think of you. Both sides. Every network. They think you're a consumer, not a citizen, not a human being, a consumer. I want to name the thing that I've been circling this whole episode because I think it's the most important idea since TrapThink started. We think of censorship as silence, the government pulling a book off a shelf, a journalist being silenced, and those things are real. But there's a kind of censorship that's far more effective, and it doesn't require silence, it requires volume. You don't have to suppress a story if you drown it out. You don't have to delete information if you can bury it under so much other information that nobody can find it. You don't have to lie if you can overwhelm people with so many truths they can't prioritize. Everything I told you today is public. The Anthropic ban, the Lutnick testimony, the executive orders, the primaries, none of it's secret. It's all right there. But you didn't know about most of it until just now, did you? Not because someone hid it, because the flood hid it. The sheer volume of important things creates a natural hierarchy, and whatever is loudest goes to the top. And the mainstream media is complicit. While everything else is sinking, the media is profiting from the flood. Every outlet, left, right, and center, profits from keeping you in the current. Because if you ever stopped long enough to look around, you might notice that the people selling you the raft are the same ones making the waves. You have a mini supercomputer in your pocket that can access the full text of every executive order ever signed, and you use it to check what your favorite pundit thinks about Iran. That's not meant as an insult, but it kind of is. It's a diagnosis. I'm the same way. Same phone, same impulses. The difference is how I've trained myself to ask, what am I not seeing right now? That question, what am I not seeing, is the most dangerous question in the attention economy, because the economy needs you to believe that what's on your feed is all there is. That if it were important, you'd have seen it already. That if you didn't hear about it, it doesn't matter. But the things that reshape your life, executive orders, agency restructuring, trade policy, judicial appointments, those almost never trend. They happened in the boring places, and the machine knows you'll never look there because there's always a brighter fire somewhere else. So what do? I ended episode 5 with 5 things. Well, here are 5 more, but this time they're not about Iran. They're about the things behind Iran. 1. Set a timer. Every time you're about to spend 30 minutes consuming Iran coverage, spend 5 minutes looking at what else happened today. Check the Federal Register. Check Congress.gov. Check what bills moved, what executive orders were signed. I know it's boring. That's the point. The boring stuff is where they do the work. Make boring your superpower. 2. Follow the Lutnick testimony, not because the other side is guilty, but because a sitting cabinet member acknowledged visiting a convicted sex offender's island with his children after lying to the public saying he cut ties 17 years earlier. That matters regardless of your politics. And follow the Bannon text too, and the Clinton depositions, all of it, because Epstein didn't have a political party, he had a client list, and that list doesn't care about your team. 3. Read the Anthropic story. Actually read it, not the headlines. Read what the 2 red lines actually were. No mass domestic surveillance, no autonomous kill decisions. And ask yourself, is that really radical? Is that really a left-wing nutjob territory, or is that just basic? And if a company can be destroyed for saying those things out loud, what does that tell you about the direction we're headed in? 4. Find out who's running in your district. The primary started yesterday. Your representative, the person who's supposedly checking executive power, authorizing wars, investigating corruption on your behalf, might be on a ballot this year. And you might not know who's challenging them because you've been watching Iran instead of watching your own backyard. And 5. Ask the question every day, every headline, what am I not seeing right now? What happened that didn't make the feed? What moved in the dark while I was staring at the light? You won't always find something, but the act of asking changes how you process information. It breaks the spell. It makes you a harder target for the machine. And honestly, that's what the enemy at the gate is most afraid of, a builder who won't come down off the wall. And here's a bonus one. After you've done these 5 things, put the screen down. Turn off the TV or the laptop or the iPad. Go outside. Look at the sky and breathe in some fresh air. Don't forget to load the dishwasher and run it. We all probably have some laundry to fold. You are a human, and humans aren't designed to only parse and filter news information from sources designed to bring you down, depress you, and keep you in fear. I do not believe in the concept of balance, as in seeking balance is the key to life, but lifting weights does require proper recovery. I started this episode with Nehemiah, the builder on the wall. I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down. The fire on the east wall is real. Iran is real. The dead Americans are real. I honor that. I grieve that. I'm not minimizing it. But while you're watching the east wall, someone walked a cabinet member's Epstein testimony through the back gate. Someone walked an AI weapons precedent through the south gate. Someone walked 243 executive orders through the north gate. And someone walked the first elections of the midterm cycle through the gate you forgot even existed. The machine doesn't need you to be ignorant. It just needs you to be overwhelmed. It doesn't need to hide things. It just needs to make sure you can't see them through the smoke. And the media, every outlet, every site, every algorithm, they profit from keeping that smoke thick. That's the game. That's what the 3 pillars of the trap look like in real time. The media sells the fire, the politicians perform around it, and the people stay locked on the brightest light while everything else walks through the gaps. But you can see through smoke if you slow down. If you ask the question, if you resist the urge to let the loudest siren determine where you look, if you refuse to come down off the wall. I know this is hard. I know you're tired. I know you went from an Epstein saga to a State of the Union to a war in the space of a week, and your brain is full and your heart is heavy. And part of you just wants to close the app and watch a movie and pretend none of this is happening. I feel it too. I'm sitting here in Colorado, 6,800 feet above sea level, recording in my home, wondering if a guy with a microphone can make any difference against a machine that processes millions of people every single day. But then I think about the watchman and what Ezekiel says happens when the watchman sees danger and says nothing. And I think about Nehemiah, who was told 100 times to come down and 100 times said no. And I think about you, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever team you think you're on, and I think you deserve to know. You deserve to see the whole board, not just the piece that they're waving in your face. So turn around, check the other walls, ask what you're not seeing. Make boring your superpower. Follow the money. the orders, the testimony, the elections, not just the explosions. And if this episode made you think about even one thing you hadn't thought about before, send it to one person, somebody who's been glued to the Iran coverage all week. Somebody smart, who cares, who's paying attention, but paying attention to the wrong wall. Turn around. I'm Darren, and this has been Trap Think. I'll see you next week. Stay curious, stay honest, and stay human.
Bottom line, all of you should be thanking us. We took out a horrendous, horrible leader who was oppressing his own people.
But don't get any ideas.
And live from New York, it's Saturday Night!